Welcome to the Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco podcast. I'm Laura DiFrancesco, your host. We're talking all about mergers and acquisitions, buying and selling small businesses, as well as corporate law. We are taking our experience closing over $10 billion of transactions since founding Dean Street Law 5 years ago, and my experience being an M&A and corporate attorney for over a decade and making it accessible to you as an entrepreneur. I hope that this helps you in navigating the complex world of mergers and acquisitions. And also, we're always happy to be a resource for you here at Dean Street Law. You can always apply to work with us through our complimentary consultations linked in our show notes. And a huge shout out and thank you to everyone who's subscribed and left us a 5-star review. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe and also leave us a 5-star review. It's one of the best ways to support us as a small business. And also be sure to share with your friends and colleagues on social media, through text, email, or however is easiest. It means the world to us that you're supporting our content and helps us make more to support you in your journey. Welcome back to another episode of the Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco podcast. I'm your host, Laura DiFrancesco, founder of Dean Street Law. And today I am so excited to chat with you about my new book, Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition, a legal guide to buying a small business. If you haven't joined the waitlist and information on how you can purchase the book, it would mean the world to me. We'll have the link in the show notes, and you can also go to deanstreetlaw.com/links. And this will show you the first chapter of the book. We're going to be talking today all about what the book has in it, how I've written it, why I've written it, so that you can have a great sense of what to expect with the book. And also, when you read the first chapter, send your review to etareview@lauradifrancesco.co to receive a free pre-LOI due diligence request list. We wanted to give a huge thank you to everyone who supports us. Having early readers and early reviews really means so much to us. And then once we're on all of the platforms, Goodreads and Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and all of that, which should be pretty soon, we will have you be able to leave reviews on those and then send a screenshot of your review to etareview@lauradifrancesco.co. So thank you in advance for leaving a 5-star review. It helps so much to spread the word about it and to share more about the resource. So let's chat a little bit about why I've written this book, and then we can chat more about what you can expect in this book. So if you haven't heard a bit of my story, I am a 5-time entrepreneur myself. I'm also an M&A attorney. I have closed over $10 billion of deals since I founded Dean Street Law in 2019. I've been an M&A attorney for over a decade and worked in big law for 7 years prior to starting my own firm. We have a phenomenal firm, Dean Street Law, where we help clients buy and sell businesses. We also have another attorney, and perhaps more in the future, working with me at Dean Street Law, a number of legal assistants and support throughout the company. So we really pride on ourselves on the standard and quality of excellence of a top tier law firm, the best of the best. That's how I was trained. That's how I trained my team. And there are so many important elements of the legal aspects of buying a small business that most entrepreneurs don't know. And we are so fortunate that at this point, there's so much better access to information in becoming an entrepreneur than 5 years ago, or when I was dreaming of becoming an entrepreneur when I was a kid. And because of that lack of information, having grown up in a household of entrepreneurs, every single person in my family being an entrepreneur, and me growing up in that environment, I always saw how important the legal aspects of any sort of business function were and how much they could impact the business, how much they could help you succeed, how much they could be your detriment, and honestly, how you can win on the terms of the deal yourself. And so my whole family being entrepreneurs, I actually grew up going to board meetings with my dad. I sat in the catbird seat when I was just a toddler, bringing coloring books and crayons to board meetings and negotiations. At that point, the negotiations for real estate, he's a real estate investor, the negotiations for real estate were at the table and everybody was sitting down and negotiating, and I'd just be coloring and bebopping around and listening and learning. And conversations at 3 and 4 and 5 with my dad were about S corporations and tax elections and 1031 exchanges and purchase prices and covenants and reps and warranties and all of those things. And so we were having very, very complex conversations early on, and no one at those tables really had any idea how educated I was becoming on these things, because just like I absolutely love my nephew, Theo. Theo is the cutest little 2-year-old ever. And Charlie, who's 1, is so adorable too. They're my brother-in-law and sister-in-law's kids, and they're growing up around a winery and vineyard. And so they are learning all of the things, skid steers and all of the presses and tanks and how to do everything. And Theo just yesterday was so adorable, helping James on the forklift lift all the grapes up and put them through the press and unbuckling the straps and everything. Like, he is learning the business of wine just as a 2-year-old would learn any language. And so I was learning the skills of deal making just as any toddler would learn any skill like walking and talking. And it was Bloomberg in the background TV, just a part of me growing up in my education and learning. And I'm super, super grateful for that for many reasons. And it really inspired me to become a lawyer. It inspired me to triple major at University of South Carolina in international business, finance, and real estate to really round out my education, because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. But I knew that in order to be an entrepreneur, I had to know the legal aspects of business. And so that's why I then went on to get my JD and MBA at Villanova and pursue law. And I thought I was just going to work in big law for a little bit, because it's a great way to sharpen your skills and learn about the most complex, challenging ways of going about deal making and being a corporate lawyer. And you have so many, you're like working on everybody's hardest issues as an entrepreneur. You have so many case studies of learning from entrepreneurs and learning how to be the best entrepreneur you can be. And at that point, none of the aspects of the legal side of a business were accessible. And so I became really passionate, because I actually became a lawyer to be an entrepreneur, to be the best version of an entrepreneur that I could be. I became super passionate about sharing what I know. That's why I have the Acquisition Insights course on the legal aspects of buying a small business. I have business foundations on the legal aspects of starting a business, and startup bundle, and so many different educational resources. And that just naturally evolved to, of course, having this podcast, Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco, but also writing a book about the legal aspects of buying a small business, because there are so many things, even in just the amount of accessibility that we have today, that are still missing, that aren't being shared, that are things that are just like, if I could tell you, I could save you thousands of dollars, or headaches, or misdirection, or missed opportunity, or not making the most of an opportunity. If I can just share a little bit of what I know, to me, that's a win, because I always love learning from other people's stories. I devour books, devour educational materials. Still to this day, I'm an avid learner. And so to me, being able to share what I know is something that means a lot to me, because I want to support you in your journey of buying a small business. And as an attorney who's been doing this for over a decade, there's quite a lot that I can share that is going to help you prepare for the acquisition, know what questions to ask, know what we're talking about when we get to the more complex issues within a deal. And so my hope is that this will be a great resource for you, that it'll be a great investment of your time. I, as a reader and avid learner, am so discerning about how I spend my time and what I invest my time and energy into. So this is going to be the most jam-packed, filled to the brim with valuable insights book that you can imagine. We go hard, go big or go home, right? Like, it is filled to the brim with everything that you need. I have read most books on mergers and acquisitions on the market. One, because it's what I've been doing for the last decade. And two, in order to write this book, I really wanted to see what was out there from a business and legal perspective. And everything was just missing what I wanted to see in a book. It was just missing the deal timeline, the nitty gritty, the details, like the really nitty gritty details, but brought to you in a way that's still accessible and isn't boring. I mean, I have whole tomes, like 5-book thick series of legal books on mergers and acquisitions, like chunky monkey. This to me is meant to be accessible, but also the business Bible of the legal aspects of buying a small business. I'm not going to tell you how to value a business. I will share with you different valuation mechanisms and where you can learn more about them. But this is really truly focusing on the legal aspects of buying a small business, and there are a lot of them. This isn't going to enable you to not have an attorney. You do need an attorney to buy a business. It is a very complex process, and a lot of people think it's just a purchase agreement, or they don't understand the legal documentation that the bank needs to approve the deal, or actually what you need to legally effectuate a transaction. Do not spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions and millions of dollars buying a business without having it properly legally documented. That's like buying a couple $1 million car and not actually getting the title to it. Don't do that. We have episodes on that. So with that said, it's going to be jam-packed. I'm really excited. I have poured so much love and energy into not just thinking about this and structuring it and writing it, but also doing so in the best way for you to read it and understand it. And it's going to take you through a deal from beginning to end. So with that said, let me pull up my actual notes and book and draft of this, and we can go through the table of contents to talk about what you can expect. I think I mentioned this, but the first chapter is available on our wait list. So check that out. Leave a review. Send it to me, ETAreview@lauradifrancesco.co. Early reviews mean the world to us. So with that said, I really broke this up into different parts, and then within those parts, different chapters. And I did that because I think it's so much easier for you to figure out where you need to pay attention. And like, let's say you don't have all the time in the world, you're in the middle of a deal and you want to pick up this book and you want to read it anyways. I want you to be able to easily find what part of the deal you're in and then what you need to know related to that. That's really important to me. And then I really tried to sequence the information in a way that was really bringing you through the process and preparing you for that entire process. So the beginning is going to be the groundwork. Then we're going to be designing your acquisition strategy and building your deal team and sourcing deals. Talking about part 4, deal economics, LOIs, and negotiations. Then we'll be getting into due diligence. Next, we're going to be talking about all the transaction documents that you can expect to see or may see within a transaction. That's pretty hefty since it is the purpose of this. And then we're going to be talking about closing the deal and integration, and wrap it up with conclusion, resources, and whatnot. So with that said, let's go into greater detail and what you can expect in each section. Now, it is in the editing process right now, so this may change a little bit, but this is on the whole what you can expect. When it comes to navigating corporate law, entrepreneurship, and managing small businesses, experience matters. Dean Street Law is a boutique corporate firm specializing in mergers and acquisitions, and additional focus in real estate, commercial transactions, finance, and corporate governance. With over $10 billion in deals closed, Dean Street Law has extensive experience representing hundreds of clients in thousands of transactions, from small businesses to Fortune 500 companies. Whether you need startup guidance or advice on closing multi-million or multi-billion-dollar deals, we're your trusted partner every step of the way. Visit deanstreetlaw.com in the show notes to schedule a complimentary consultation. part one, the groundwork, we're going to be talking about overall ETA process. What is ETA? Why are they attractive? What are the high level risks? Doing some self-assessments. We're going to build in some lifestyle design to help you assess your risk tolerance and personal goals and align your ETA journey with your lifestyle design. If you don't know, I absolutely love lifestyle design. It is something I'm hugely passionate about. I have a whole course and resources on lifestyle design called Wild Ambition, lifestyle design course, workshop, workbook, all resources for you if you want to learn more about that. And we have more about that on our podcast, We Grow Together, as well. So we're going to be talking through what to expect in the ETA process. And then the next is talking about responsibilities of ownership. If you didn't know, especially if you're bringing on investors, it's nice to think about the perks. A lot of the time, though, people don't talk about the actual responsibilities of it, legally speaking, with fiduciary duties. So I love all of the resources that have been brought about through ETA, but one of the most common things that I really struggle with is that everybody makes it this bro culture of fear of missing out, and this is the way to do it, and don't worry, you don't need money, use other people's money, and they just talk about it in such a, in my opinion, just not aligned way. I don't vibe with that at all. I want you to go into entrepreneurship with a clear understanding of what to expect and the actual aspects of it, not just like the rosy colored glasses, but what you can actually expect and what you need to know, because you're giving yourself a potential for a lawsuit here too, which you don't necessarily, there isn't necessarily going to be a lawsuit, but you should know what fiduciary duties you owe to investors and how they can sue you if you do something wrong, if you don't properly disclose something. That's really important. And of course, if you are bringing on investors, you absolutely need a lawyer, but this will at least give you a little bit of insight into it as well. And then how to have that strategic mindset going in of aligning your acquisition with your long-term objectives and personal goals. And then we'll talk about ETA models. There are a lot of different ETA models. We're going to talk about search fund economics, self-funded search, self-funded with capital raise, traditional search funds, partnered searches, independent and fundless sponsors, accelerators, all that good stuff, comparing and contrasting those. And then next, we're going to move on to part two, which is designing your acquisition strategy. So we're going to call out the different aspects of an asset purchase versus a stock purchase, mergers, minority deals, all the different acquisition structures you can expect, and then the tax and liability implications of those when they're appropriate, and the deal economics that are relevant to those, such as working capital adjustments, purchase price allocations. Next, we're going to be talking about developing your buy box. A lot of people go into this with just a rough idea of how to identify a buy box and how to understand the specifics of sourcing deals, but there's so much more that goes into it beyond financial criteria. There's also legal aspects to it, strategic fit, personal goals. So we'll talk about industry regulations, licensure requirements, liability concerns, all of those. And then we'll talk about financing the deals and creative structures, how debt versus equity works, whether it's SBA loans, conventional debt, seller notes, mezzanine financing, or equity rollover, equity split, investors, private equity, all of those at a great high level, but then also talking about the legal aspects of those and what you can expect with loan agreements, security agreements, subscription agreements, private placement memorandum, preferred return mechanisms, and buy-sell rights, all to say that you absolutely need to make sure that you have an attorney with this, but it'll help you understand all the things that it will get involved with that process. Then we're going to be talking about entity formation and your strategy of where you want to have your business located with the different entity types, including LLCs, C Corps, S Corps, not a separate entity, just a tax election, series LLCs, partnerships, trusts, and more. We do deals with each and every one of those. We've done actually a lot of deals with trusts recently, and we're going to talk about ROBs and where you have your business, whether it's Delaware, other states. Today, I just had a conversation with someone on Delaware versus Wyoming, so that was cool. The next part is all about building your deal team and sourcing. So we're going to talk about your deal team with attorneys, accountants, whether it's quality of earnings advisors or tax accountants, lenders, brokers, consultants. Talk about what you can expect with engagement letters and selecting and balancing them. And then the next chapter is about sourcing and screening targets. So how to find businesses, whether it be through brokers, intermediaries, proprietary outreach, search platforms, and high-level guidance on those, as well as talking through confidential information memorandum, non-disclosure agreements, and the key legal aspects to all of those. And then a little bit of pre-LOI due diligence. So if you want that pre-LOI due diligence request list, be sure to send me a 5-star review. I'm happy to send that over to you. So that's the next chapter, going through the preliminary due diligence and valuation basics of checking the corporate status, determining liabilities, understanding fundamental financials, whether it be sellers' discretionary earnings or EBITDA multiples. The next part is on deal economics, LOIs, and negotiations. So this is going to first talk about purchase price mechanisms and deal economics. So there's a lot to unpack here, but quickly that includes purchase price, working capital adjustments, earnouts, seller financing, rollover equities, holdbacks, and escrows. And actually, we have a cool upcoming episode. I think our next episode's about holdbacks and escrows, deposits, and other price mechanisms, the economic terms of the deal overall, tax treatment, whether there's lease or an agreement or compensation of owners per past closing, post-closing, buying or real estate or leasing real estate post-closing. The next is going to be regulatory and industry specific considerations. We get asked this all the time. And actually, we have some upcoming episodes coming up on this of healthcare industries, manufacturing industries. There's different challenges to each of those. We're well versed in them, but they do have specific implications on deal terms that I think it's really important for you to know before you start thinking about a letter of intent. And those are going to influence your deal terms, especially like today I was talking about a acquisition of a waste management company and an environmental waste management company. That is a very different company. It needs to be a stock purchase generally. We need to make sure we understand licensing requirements, how that transfers. So that was a fun call today. And then the next chapter is about indications of interest and letters of intent, your non-binding transaction documents that are set forth the key economic and key deal terms. But the most important thing to think about there is really understanding that it isn't entirely non-binding. It is binding in respect, and there are things like due diligence and whether it has a deposit or something held in escrow, and confidentiality, exclusivity provisions, all of those are going to be binding. So especially if there is a deposit, how important that is to make sure that you understand the terms, that it's drafted appropriately, attorney reviewed. The next is building a deal timeline. We do have a podcast episode on that. And this is going to go in depth on the process of due diligence, drafting, financing, approvals, and it'll go through a sample timeline calculation that we use commonly. The next chapter will be on negotiation strategy and skills. So negotiation techniques, analyzing negotiations, how to listen, creative structuring, balancing being firm with being flexible, and developing trust and relationship between the parties, when and how to use your attorney effectively to manage the negotiation process and to best complete the negotiation process. The next is preparing for due diligence, overview of the due diligence process, legal versus financial versus operational due diligence, and who you can expect to do what work where. And the next chapter is on legal due diligence, specifically all the things that we review: corporate documents, contracts, IP, litigation, employment, real estate, compliance, insurance, environmental issue, and so much more, and how we handle red flags for those different elements and prepare due diligence reports, support our clients throughout that process. And then the next is going to cover financial and operational and due diligence together. how we work with quality of earnings analyses, cash flow assessments, working capital requirements, customer supplier concentration, regulatory risks, and operational assessments. All of those impact your deal terms in some way or another. So that's really important. Thinking about buying a business? Unlock the secrets of successful acquisitions with Acquisition Insights, your legal roadmap for success. With over 81 modules of video lectures, written materials, guides, and checklists, we provide in-depth guidance to navigate every step of the process. From initial interest to closing the deal, get the expertise you need to make informed decisions. You can also access our battle-tested templates in the Acquisition Insights course and templates bundle, including our template LOIs, letters of intent, pre- and post-LOI due diligence request list, material deal terms lists, and more. Visit lauradifrancesco.co/the-shop today and take the first step towards buying your dream business. All the links are in the show notes. The next section is all about papering the deal, the contract. So we're going to go through, and I'll go through these briefly because I feel like this is getting a little bit longer, but we'll go through chapter by chapter, one on the purchase agreement, seller notes, another on employment and consulting agreements, another chapter on non-compete and restrictive covenants, the next on escrow and holdback agreements, the next chapter on equity rollover, shareholder operating agreements, the next chapter on real estate agreements, the next chapter on conveyance documents, and then we have transition services and ancillary transaction documents, and we end that part with a chapter on the closing documents certificates. So it is robust. We're going to be going through all of those different transaction documents, what you can expect to see in them, deal terms to negotiate. So expect a good amount of preparation. So while you're going to have your attorney drafting all these documents, knowing what they say, having good preparation, understanding how these work and how they may actually impact your LOI terms, all of those are really important to increase your deal-making skills and support you in your evolution of buying small businesses. The next part is on closing and integration, so closing prep and process. The next chapter is on the closing day and flow of funds. Then we have post-closing legal wrap-up, what we do post-closing. And then the next chapter is on post-closing integration and transition planning, what you can be expecting to do post-closing, your 100-day plan, communications with employees, customers, suppliers. And then that wraps it up with a conclusion of congratulations and going through. I have so much more information here on all the things, and that's really just a high level. It's going to be beefy. It's going to be the business Bible for buying a small business from the legal aspects and from the legal side. So I hope it's something that you enjoy. It means the world to me to be able to share this with you. Your support means so much to me, sharing it on social media, sharing it with friends. If there's somewhere that has a workshop or a conference, or if you're in an MBA class, having me speak at your ETA club or ETA conference or at a workshop or something, anything that we can do to drum up some support for the book would mean the world to me. So thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco. I hope you check out the book, check out the first chapter, download it, let me know what you think, send me a 5-star review, pre-order it, order it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all the different platforms, and just thank you for everything. It means the world to me. So excited to celebrate the launch of this with you and appreciate all that you do to continue to be involved in our world. Cheers and happy deal making. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco podcast. I hope you found today's discussion insightful and that it brought you one step closer to mastering the art of mergers and acquisitions. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Dealmaking with Laura DiFrancesco on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in our discussion, please leave a 5-star review. It would mean the world to us, and share this podcast with your network, friends, and colleagues. For more in-depth resources, be sure to visit our website, deanstreetlaw.com, where you can find articles, guides, and more information on our services. Don't forget to follow us on social media for the latest episodes, updates, tips, and exclusive content. You can find us on LinkedIn, Search Funder, at LM DiFrancesco on X, and at Dean Street Law on Instagram. Join us on our next episode where we'll explore more deal-making insights. Cheers and happy deal making.